I said, all right, God, I'm going to make a deal with you. I'm going to step out in faith and do just that. But if this is not from you, you better shut this door really quick because I'm not going to have a job and I'm getting married in a month. So that's basically what I told him. So gave my 3 week notice. Um, of course, my bosses asked me, okay, we understand you gave a notice, but why a 3 week? Well, God told me. That was fun. And then, long story short, I was home. It was one of my off days, and the phone rang. And again, I felt God telling me whatever's on the end of that phone, you say yes to. So I picked up the phone, and it was the Pfister Hotel. Well, we had heard from somebody that heard from somebody that heard from somebody that you're looking for a job in the accounting field. I didn't know any of those people they talked about. I had never taken an accounting course in my life. I have no college, at all. And but I remembered God telling me to say yes to this. And I just told him, I don't have any accounting experience, but I want to learn how to do it right. So I'd be more than willing to come in for an interview. So I did. I got the job. Granted, it was entry level. And within 2 weeks of working there, I realized, oh my God, I love this. Obviously, I must be really crazy to like numbers. Anybody is. They have to have mental health issues. So um, I'm not saying anything about you, Janet. But what the cool thing is that my last day at the restaurant was a Sunday, the end of my 3 weeks, and the very first day at my new job was the very next day. So I listened to God. It was exactly 3 weeks, and I got the job, and it turned out really, really great. I know God gave this career to me, and so I try to give back as much as I can. In the Jewish community, it's interesting because they're a community. No matter what they do, they don't escape their jobs. For example, I work in Ovation right now as a consultant. Ovation is a Jewish nursing home. The whole continuum of care is there. When the Jewish people who work there go home, they don't leave their work. Everything about them, about their work, it's all combined. It's all family. It's like if you worked at the church every single day, I know some of you do. It's like, when people who worked at Parkway, they work there every single day. I mean, it's kind of crazy. That's what the Jewish people do. Their community, they just fit there. But their community is very different. They've had the scriptures for over 6,000 years, right? They understand money. They do very well with it. So they teach each other and groom each other on money. And you look at most of the people who are on the boards, every one of them, you have to have a lawyer in the family, a doctor in the family, an accountant in the family. That's just the way that they are. And they love to debate. They do not argue, they debate. But, they teach each other money. They teach each other how to be stewards. They teach all of that. And so, for example, there's a ton of nursing homes in this area that are going bankrupt because Medicare, Medicaid don't pay what they used to. This Jewish nursing home, because of the entire community who has money, they have a huge foundation that covers the shortfall every single month of the Jewish nursing home, which is really kind of cool. So they teach this, and they in their synagogues, on the side, it's their way of life. I'm first generation Christian. My family didn't teach me nothing. How many first generation Christians do we have here, or second? The family came in and so on and so forth, but we don't have that continuum for 6,000 years in here. How do we invest our money? How do we budget? How do we do all of these things? We just don't have it. So that's my goal, is to try to bring this to people in the church if they want it. So, and that's why I do taxes as well. I don't charge like H&R Block does. I have 135 clients I don't want anymore, so I just want to let you know I have enough. I lost one a year ago when you got married. So, because I did them for both you and your husband, now it's just one return, thank God. So, but that's why I do this, is to give back to the community. Personally, I've been in church for 38 years, married for 35, 4 adult children, 3 grandkids who are wonderful. I love landscaping, remodeling, cooking, catering, and I love dark chocolate in case anybody wants to buy me a present. And I love to travel. Next slide, please. The Bible and money. There's over 2,350 verses regarding money in the Bible. Money, wealth, gold, silver, etc. It's one of the most talked about subjects in the Bible. The only other subject that's talked about more is love. So, sometimes we can get so hung up on certain things that are in the Bible. Okay, that's mentioned like 3 or 4 times. Money is mentioned 2,350 times. There's a parable of the talents. I love the parable of the talents. I use that not only in trying to be a steward over my money, but I also use that in my daily life. God's given me various actual talents to use, and I try to use all of those within the church or with people, not all at the same time because that doesn't work, but I try to use them. Timothy focused on believers' stewardship of two riches, God's wealth and his word. Keep your lives free from the love of money and learn to be content with what you have. Everybody say content. The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the leader. Is that true or what? Let's just go on to the next slide, please. He that hath no rule over his own spirits is like a city that is broken down and without walls. There is treasure to be desired and oil in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man spendeth it up. There's a ton. You could go on. I mean, these are just a couple of scriptures compared to the 2,350 that are out there. So realistically, the goals of this class, there's 4 of them. One is to learn how to be a steward over the riches that God has given us. That's the first one. Understand that God has made a provision for our entire lives, not just today. Before I go on to the next 2, I'm going to tell you a quick story. I actually heard a comedian telling this story. It was a Christian comedian. Everybody laughed, but when I say it, nobody laughs. So I don't think it's funny. I just think it's realistic. So basically, there's a huge flood. Everybody familiar with floods? We had one a couple of weeks ago. So all of a sudden, the guy's climbing on top of his house, and he's like, God, I need your help. You gotta save me. I don't want, the water's starting to get higher, and I don't want to drown. So all of a sudden, this canoe comes by. A guy in the canoe tells him, hey, jump on in. I'll bring you to high land. Oh, no, that's okay because God's going to save me. And so, the water's getting higher, the canoe goes away. So, God, you got to save me. You got to save me. So all of a sudden, the speedboat comes by. He says, hey, hop on in. I'll take you to safety. I'll take you to dry ground. Oh, that's okay because God is going to save me. So all of a sudden, God, please save me. I'm going to drown. The water's up to my neck. All of a sudden, a yacht comes by. And, he says, hop on in and let me take you to high ground. I'll bring you to safety. That's okay because God's going to save me. The guy drowns. He goes up to heaven. God, why didn't you save me? He said, I did. I sent you a canoe, I sent you a boat, and I sent you a yacht. And he totally ignored them. And everybody laughed right there when the comedian said it, but no one laughs here today. But that's a very, very true story. And that's what happens with our finances. All of a sudden, people start going into retirement. God, I don't have any money for Social Security. What am I going to do? I don't have anything saved up in my 401k. Everything's really expensive. What am I going to do? He's going to say, I gave you a bonus. I gave you a raise. I gave you a brand new job. What did you do with all of those things? Again, stressing the point that God supplies us for our entire lives, not just today. Just because you get a raise doesn't mean, I can go and start spending more money. Just throw it in my pocket and let it burn a hole in it. You can't do that. We need to learn how to live within our means and be content. We shouldn't have to worry about keeping up with the Joneses. And with those ideas in mind, plan for our retirement. This is part of God's provision. Next slide, please. So sessions, obviously there's 4 sessions right now. There's introduction, which is today, budget personality, and budget basics. One of the reasons why people don't do well with budgets because sometimes, everybody will go to a David Ramsey course. Well, not everybody's got that same personality. Someone will go to something with the Susie, what is her, Susie Orman? Nobody's got that. Everybody's got a different personality. What's going to work for you? Okay? I'm going to try to get that out of there. The 24th, debt and getting out of debt. The last one, investing for a retirement. And at the end of this, I don't have a 5th one. I know he might have said there are going to be 5 classes, but what I'm going to try to do, I really want to open it up for questions, but I don't want them to be personal questions that you're going to throw. I don't want Julie to stand up and put her business out in front of everybody. She doesn't need to do that. So try to meet with people one-on-one. If you have questions, what can I help you with? That type of a thing. Next slide, please. Questionnaire. So that being said, this is the fun part. Gentlemen, can each of you take a stack of questionnaires and pens and pass them out to everybody who are here? So what I want to do too is that I have these questionnaires. I don't need you to write your name on them. I just want you to fill them out as best you can. The reason for this is because I'm going to compile other information. I would like to know what you know and what you don't know. And I can gear the rest of this based on that information. If everybody knows everything there is to know about credit cards and everybody scores 100% about that, I'm not even going to touch that. Why waste my time? But so that, that's the idea behind this. So let's get these filled out, and it should be interesting. And we have the results of those next time around. Very good. So let's just go to the next one. So we did the questionnaire. Next week, I'll show the results of that, and you'll be surprised by it. So I want to get ugly for a second. That's always fun. Later on, it'll get nice, but first I have to get a little bit ugly. So we can just click next. This is not a get-rich-quick class. If you thought this was a get-rich-quick class, you're in the wrong place. That's not what this is about. I'm not going to give you $1 million. I'm not going to put out a pyramid scheme for you to something to invest in. This is going to be, been through those. This is about discipline and teaching. You like to go on? So the biggest obstacle that every one of you have is your pride. Okay? I want to follow my own set of rules. I don't want to follow discipline. I want to do it my way. I'm going to continue doing it this way. It's not going to work. The very first step you have to take in order to learn how to budget properly and manage your own finances and be a good steward is to get over your own pride and understand it's not even your money to begin with. This is God's money, right? So let's go on to the next slide. So a lot of things you're going to have to learn about. Well, obviously, we're talking about our pride. Personal experiences are going to dictate our personalities. How are we going to budget? What disciplines are we going to follow? What means more to you? Something that you're saving for doesn't mean anything to me, but I'm doing something else. It's okay. We're all different people. God made us that way. So it's okay to have different personal experiences and different likes, but we have to budget accordingly. Discipline is huge. You have to have discipline in order to do this. It's going to be hard work at the beginning of the process. It always is, because you're going to change something that you're doing. It might be one thing, it might be two things, it might be 10 things. But eventually you're going to see that once you have everything in place, it's really easy to follow if you get it set up properly. You can learn to be content or not. And so I had some people tell me, well, you're just not content with your life. You got to learn how to be content. I was content with the money I was making. I wasn't content with my career because I knew God was leading me in a different direction. I wasn't going to be content until I was all that God wanted me to be, right? So there's different meanings behind content, but you need to be content with what you have and learn how to live in your means. So what does that mean? So right now, let's say you have a $6,000 car. You're struggling to make, with your budget, but that's what you have is a $6,000 car. You get into a car accident, it gets totaled. It wasn't your fault, so you get the full $6,000 from the insurance company. And then you go out and buy a $42,000 brand new vehicle. People do that all the time. It's like, and then they come to me, well, I can't balance my budget. Well, why did you buy this car? You couldn't afford it to begin with. You were already living in your means here. Now you're living above your means. So, but just because it's there doesn't mean you should take it. Doesn't mean you should buy it. So we have to set goals in everything that we do. Sometimes goals take a long time to achieve. Sometimes it's short. Sometimes I just forget about my goals and do something automatic. For example, as my 401k, I don't even think about it. My goal is I want to put money aside for retirement. It automatically comes out of my paycheck. And all of a sudden, 2 years later, I finally look at my statement for the first time. Oh, wow, I got this much money in there. When did that happen? So sometimes you don't even realize that, you forget about your goals, but they're still working for you if you set it up correctly. Next slide, please. An ugly reality is Matthew 26:11, the poor you will always have with you. That's Bible. That's not Terry. So if you're single and you do not have the skill set and you don't have the discipline, and you do not have the want to, you're going to fail at this. If you're married and neither one of you, neither a husband or wife, have the discipline or the skill set or the want to, this isn't going to work either. If you're single and are married and at least one of you has a skill set and discipline or the want to, then you have a chance. Now, you really have to have the want to. You don't have to have the discipline right now, but you can learn discipline. You can learn a skill set, but you have to have the want to do this. I'm just going to tell you a quick story before you go over that. So I remember we were at a different church, and this one guy, brother, can I just borrow $200? I have to feed my family. And of course, lived on this, I call it the South Side ghetto. And of course, yeah, I give him borrowing means I'm never going to get it back, right? So yeah, I gave him $200, and he, and that would happen like 3-4 times a year easily. Then I did his taxes, and I was furious. I sat him down. I'm like, dude, you make more than I do. I've got a home in Brown Deer, and you're sitting here on the South Side ghetto, and you're making more money than me, and you're begging me for money? I'm like, I don't think so. And we had a very harsh discussion. It was a hard discussion for him to learn. But neither one of them had the want to. I was trying to help them devise a budget, be more responsible with their finances, but neither one of them cared. They were happy living the way that they were. Nothing you can do there. Needless to say, I have not borrowed them money since. I'm sure other people have. Go on to the next one, please, Corey. So what's your status? I'm going to start from the bottom up. So the lower class today of 2025 is about $35,000 or less annually. Lower middle class between $35,000 and $58,000. Middle class is between $58,000 and $176,000. Upper middle class is about $176,000 to $793,000. I wish. And upper middle class is $793,000 plus. Most of the lower class in the U.S. are richer than the middle class in all other countries. And despite their classes, it doesn't matter which class we're talking about. If not, not just lower, not just middle, upper as well. 65% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Why? Because every time they make more money, I can spend that. No, you can't. Really? So again, we have to learn how to be stewards over this. Next slide, please. Status by net worth. So lower middle class for Americans is $35,000, and other countries it's $12,000. I just go to middle class, $176,000. Other countries it's $20,000 to $128,000. Isn't that crazy? Upper middle class, $300,000 is the average. Other countries it's $128,000 to $220,000. What's the problem here? So class isn't, you can determine your class by how much money that you make. But quite frankly, how you live really determines the class that you're in. Next slide, please. Class does not matter. Again, a survey found, and CNBC found that 65% of respondents across all classes live paycheck to paycheck. And here are some of the reasons that they cited. Number one is inflation. Number two is lack of savings, interest rates. But the 35% who don't live paycheck to paycheck also are going through inflation and savings problems and interest rates, but they're not living paycheck to paycheck, right? But so they're saying all of these are, this is the reason. They're blaming it on something. But 35% of Americans who aren't living paycheck to paycheck understand these things and are trying to incorporate those things into their budgeting process. So, credit card debt. I have a number of slides later on about credit card debt and the proper way to handle that. Medical or healthcare expenses. Yes, I have health insurance, but I also have an HSA account. So I want to make sure I've got enough money in that because I have all these out-of-pocket expenses I have to take care of. I hate to say it, but some people who are either lower class or lower middle class, you can also still get charity care to cover some of those. I remember charity care back in the day, well, if you made $10,000 or less, my daughter, she doesn't mind me saying this, together they make about 80,000. They got other medical expenses dismissed with the charity care. So, I mean, the income is going up on that. So don't think just because you're making a certain amount of money that you can't qualify for something. You can, it's there. They blame layoffs or loss of income, educational debt. Favorite one. My girls hated me for the longest time. So I have 4 girls, so I can blackmail them. It worked out really, really well. So I told them, I said, I'm not paying a dime for your wedding unless you graduate college. Well, that's not fair. Yes, it is. So the first time around with Jessie, 3 weeks after she graduated, she walked down the aisle. Let me tell you, that was cutting it close. And I told you, I said, if you flunk one of your classes, you owe me some money. And she goes, really? I said, you're dead right. I would never take that back from her. But I just said that and just kind of put a little bit of shock into her. But realistically, educational debt, when I talk to the kids, okay, we live in Milwaukee at this point. You're going to go to UWM, or if you're going to do a trade, then there's a school for that, whatever you want to go to. But, you're going to go to college. You have to learn something more than just high school. My dad had an 8th grade education. My oldest sister was the only one. She went to MBTI, Manpower Business Training Institute. It was popular in the 60s. He's the only one who remembers. All the rest of you are too young. But she's the only other one. And then I'm actually the first one, the youngest of 11, who graduated with a degree. But as the years go by, they're requiring more and more skill sets and education for you to be in the world. So when it comes to educational debt, UWM or something close by, you're going to live at home. You're not going to live on campus. There's no reason to. I mean, that's going to cost a heck of a lot of money. You're going to cover your car and your gas. I've got everything else. Don't worry about it. And we did have a benefactor who covered some tuition, but we paid for the rest. School books. Who the heck is going to pay $250 for a school book or whatever? Well, some people do. I refuse. I went on eBay. Here's all the ISBN numbers for all the textbooks. I went on eBay and bought all these. Oh, this one's only $40. This one's $25, right? And then I would turn around and sell them when the semester is over. So long story short, they graduated with 0 college debt. All I heard was, this is the pain. And my friends, I don't care what your friends think. This is what we need to do. And here's Johanna. She wanted to go to MIA, Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design, 40 grand a year. I don't have 40 grand a year. You got to learn. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And what are you going to do with the art degree in your future? How are you going to parlay that into a job? Let's think about this. And so all of a sudden, Jesse's married, and about a year later, as married couples do, all of a sudden their single friends kind of go away, and all of a sudden they have all these married friends. It just happens. It's kind of sad. But so all of a sudden she came to me one day and she goes, Dad, I got to thank you. I said, for what? And she goes, yeah, we're talking with Greg and Carrie, and they have about $45,000 in college debt. These people have 75, and this couple, they have over 100,000. We have nothing. And she said, thank you. And I said, what? And she said, of course I was being stupid. I wanted to hear it again just because I knew it was going to be a long time before I heard a thank you from my kids again. And she said, thank you again. But so many people have college debt, and they're so much further ahead because they don't. And I have people to this day that I do taxes for. They're in their 50s and 60s and they have over $100,000 in college debt. Why? There's so many different ways to do college. You could have a job find a job where the company has tuition reimbursement, that has that benefit. There's so many different ways of doing it. There's so many different Pell Grants and scholarships and things that you can apply for, that you can qualify for. I hate to say it, but because I'm Caucasian, there's not a lot of opportunities there for me, but Hispanics, Blacks, other, people have those. There's more scholarships available, so there should be no excuse why you can't go, Next slide. Story time. I'll tell you the story. So the first story is about Earl. Everybody say Earl. Oh, Daniel's awake. Earl owns a small painting company and brings home $150,000 after taxes every single year. He's a great painter, but not a good budgeter. When Earl sees something he wants, he buys it. When he doesn't have cash, um, when he does have cash, he finances it or puts it on a high interest credit card. And so far, Earl's been pretty lucky. He's able to pay his bills each month, barely. What he doesn't do is put money into an emergency savings account or invest for his future. Earl has effectively put himself into a position of living paycheck to paycheck at $150,000. I know people who make more than that who are living paycheck to paycheck. And then, so that's Corey, not Earl. Then you have Kevin. Kevin runs a small nonprofit and brings home about $50,000 after taxes. Since graduating from college, Kevin has practiced reverse budgeting. Reverse budgeting means that the first money off the top goes into savings. Well, for us church folk, first 10% goes into tithing, and of course there's also offerings. So the first money off the top after that of his income each month goes towards savings and investing, like a 401k or just a regular savings account. He's decided to save and invest 10%, meaning the first $416 of his $4,166 monthly income is spoken for. It's the remaining $3,750 that he budgets to pay bills such as rent, transportation, utilities, and food, and he forgets that it's there. Once you have something like that automatically set up, forget it's there and live off the rest. Okay. After 30 years, Earl has nothing put away for retirement despite earning 3 times as much as Kevin. However, Kevin's investments have earned an average annual return of 7%, and his account balance is up to $471,000. Not bad. I hear a lot about, oh, the poor teachers, they don't make that much. Some of the richest people I know are teachers because they know how to invest and they know how to put money away for retirement. So when it comes time for retirement, these people, the teachers that I know, are doing really, really well. And maybe it's because they have to learn to be in that position, because I'm only making $50,000, $60,000 a year as a teacher. How do you live off of that? They learn very well. Next slide, please. So discipline, let's talk about that. Discipline is the self-control that is gained by requiring that rules or orders be obeyed and the ability to keep working at something that is difficult. You can apply discipline in finances, parenting. Yeah. Disciplinarians believe that such self-control is of the utmost importance and enforce a set of rules that aim to develop such behavior. So, and of course, another definition is consistency. Problems happen. Things arise. Mortgage crisis happen. I almost lost everything. Life happens, right? But so there's going to be breaks in that consistency, but you have to maintain some sort of discipline to get out of it and to walk through it. So next slide, please. Now, this is the good news. The fact that you guys are here, that's huge, okay? That says a lot about you. People are not necessarily born with skill sets. Skill sets can be developed. Discipline can be learned and maintained. But you're here. Maybe your pastor told you to. But at the same time, you came, and you're going to learn some more about it. And so I think that's a huge plus in this. But again, like I said, it doesn't mean that mistakes or life won't happen. I mean, for us, for example, the mortgage crisis happened back 2011. For us, it happened in 2011. I think it started back in 2008. So I'm a consultant. So all of a sudden, nobody's using consultants anymore. So I'm without a job. Oh my God, how am I going to feed my family? The only job I could find was in Kentucky. So we moved on to Kentucky. And I tell people never to do this next thing, but I had no choice. I depleted my 401k for this move, right? But I've been dumping everything I can after that into 401k, paying off our house. Next year, our house that we have now is going to be fully paid off, but it's discipline. What am I going to do to make this work? But what does that mean? In order to do some of those things, I can't go to Disney World every single year. I can't go on vacation to Europe every single year. There's no way you can do that. We take some short jaunts to Door County. We have a great time. To have a good time doesn't mean you have to go somewhere or spend $50,000, right? So why are budgets important? They create financial stability. Pay bills on time, avoiding late fees. Late fees can kill you, as well as the interest rates. Reducing and eliminating interest. So, I mean, you can have a credit card at 13% and you make the minimum payment. It'll take you about 40 years to pay that thing off. It's kind of crazy. Budgeting helps you avoid overspending. Christmas, birthdays, special occasions. This year we made a decision. We're not even doing anything for Christmas because we have everything we need. What am I going to buy you, John? We just had a huge rummage sale. And I'm looking at things I bought my kids that I thought that was special, but they don't need it, And so we all agreed we're just going to do something together, as a family. We don't need to spend all that money. You can assist, this can help you assist building an emergency fund. Does anybody here have an emergency fund? Ooh, couple people, yay. We'll talk about those in a couple other classes. Can assist with other savings goals such as retirement. Can assist with improving our health. I tell you, when your finances are in line, your job is in line, everything's in line, isn't it just less stressful? Feels great. Can improve family communication, sheds light on bad spending habits. What is that? Is it rock? What is that thing that they have on TV? It's some app, which I don't need it. If you look at your credit card, you can figure this out yourself. But it goes through and finds all the duplicate things that you're paying for. What is that? Rocket what? Yeah, something like that. I just saved all this money because it found all these apps for me, but you're paying money for the app. So helps, and most important, it helps us fulfill God's requirement to be good stewards over what we got. Next slide, please. So when we're budgeting, there's a couple things to consider. Simplicity. It doesn't have to be that complicated. When we do our budget, I try to make sure out of my 401k, out of my paycheck, 401k comes out automatically. Savings comes out. HSA comes out. I don't even think about it. When I figure out my budget, here's my check, not what I actually make, not what I grossly make on the gross basis. I look at what my net check is, and that's what I base my budget off of. Try to be fair to everybody who's in the budget. That means I got to be fair to my wife. You got to be fair to my kids. Am I going to spend this all on me, or am I going to make this a family thing? Which means if you're doing a budget, sometimes you might want to consider your family's input. Obviously, if you're married, you're going to consider your spouse's input, and the two of you should try to work together on it. Most of the time, I just tell Sodi, she's funny. I just kind of tell her what I'm doing, and she's like, "Go for it." I just remember when we first got married, every 2 weeks, "Oh, honey, here's a new budget. Here's a new budget." And finally, she got so sick of it. She goes, "I don't ever want to hear that word again." So I never talked to her about it. And 4 years later, we turned around and we bought our first house. And I came up with the down payment, and she's like, "Where do you get that?" I'm sorry, I can't tell you. So, but you want to have spousal unity. We have different gifts. Some of us are planners and spenders. Some are documenters, and some are developers. So everybody's got different gifts regarding it. What I think is a huge need may not be a need for her. And then we'll sit down and discuss it. "Oh, yeah, you're right. I really don't need that after all." Because you want to think about the family and what's going to be best for us. Offerings, right? So I think about offerings. Good, he ain't there. So when I think about offerings, what does the Bible say? You rob me of tithes and offerings. So we all know about tithes, but there's also offerings. So granted, a lot of times, unless somebody asks you, how do you make an offering? What do you make it to? We just had a big missions pledge or a thing last week. So, there's missions funds that we can donate to, so on and so forth. What about the building fund here? We're putting on a brand new roof here. I know David, he says, "I don't like asking anybody for money." I said, "I'll ask for you." So, but there's building funds. There's other things that this church is going to need now, and it's going to need it in the future. So, offerings are okay too. You try to work those into it. But overall, prayer. Pray about it. Having a plan helps you experience freedom. So again, you think about stuff that you need. I'm thinking, God, I can be retiring in about 4 years. And I'm finally going to get my Ford Mustang convertible, and I think that's going to be really cool. I'm finally going to do this. And all of a sudden it just kind of hit me. When am I going to drive it? First of all, it's a fix or repair daily or found on road dead, whichever way. I know you've heard all those, right? It's still a Ford. It looks really cool. And my first grade teacher had this lime green Ford Mustang that it was always in the parking lot that I always walked past every single day. And I loved that car when I was a kid. And I started thinking about it even more. Well, I'm not going to be working or doing this. I'm like, we could go down to just one car. Do I really need to spend 40 something thousand dollars on a brand new car that we don't need? It would be a nice to have, but I'm like, I don't know that we really need to do that. So, I mean, at the same time, I'm not saying you shouldn't do anything nice for yourself. God likes us to be blessed. God likes us to have nice things. We like to adorn ourselves and things, but you don't have to spend a lot of money in doing it. Next slide, please. So I have homework for every one of you. The best you can. I mean, granted, we haven't gone through all the budgeting and everything else. So this is something for you to work on. I'm not going to look at them, but I want you to try to create a budget for the month of October and bring it to the next session. And the next session, we're going to take all of these budgets and expand on them and move from there. What I also want to do, I want to make a sign-up sheet because I'm not so concerned about this week, but the next following weeks, I want to, if you want them, I will email you the PowerPoint right before class. That way you can print them out. You can write on them as notes, and then you have all the information there without having to rewrite absolutely everything. Okay. So, but we're going to start getting into the meat of everything next week. But of course, I'm going to incorporate all of this into that lesson. Create it and bring it with you. Because as we're going through and discussing some of the things, you can be taking a look at your own. Oh, what percentage of my income is going toward my house payment or my rent? Or what percentage of my income is going toward this? Or, wow, this is really blown out of proportion. Some people have never made a budget. So they're going to be uh-oh. I saw a hand raise. So, I mean, it's going to be a challenge because all of a sudden you're going to see, I spend all my money on this, 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 and this. That's going to be interesting. How we got to figure that out. Try to discipline ourselves. Next slide. I think that would be it. It is it. Questions right now. This is just an introduction. Again, then we're going to really get into the meat of it the next couple of weeks. And quite frankly, you don't need 5, 6, 7 weeks to talk about budgeting. I'm just going to kind of tell you up front, if you were to go online and find different ways for budgeting and finances, you're going to find 20 million different authors with 20 million different ways to do it. And everyone absolutely insists that their way is right. Okay. David Ramsey is extremely conservative. Doesn't believe in debt at all. And if you could do a 15-year mortgage, okay. Doesn't believe in credit cards, doesn't believe in anything else. Okay, this is 2025. It doesn't work that way anymore. Everything's there are places you cannot use cash. So at some point, you're going to have to probably use a credit card, and I try to tell younger people that, but you have to be disciplined in how you use it and what you use it for. You have, oh my God, what is his name? Tip of the tongue, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Yes, the dude is so highly leveraged. If this economy just falls apart, he's going to be broke tomorrow. I mean, it's crazy. And I know people, for example, I have one guy, but he's trying to be responsible about it. He's got 7 or 8 Airbnbs. He's going to try to buy like 4 or 5 more. So he buys these places. He takes an equity loan off of one Airbnb, puts it on another house, builds that up, starts renting it out, takes the equity. I mean, next thing you know, you're so leveraged. How much do you even own? And if you don't manage it right, and you have to be the right person to do something like that because it can be really scary. I had a couple of rental properties. I get rid of them. I don't deal with people that well, especially when they're just regular rentals. Airbnb would have been different. And then you have, Susie Orman, she's like right smack dab in the center. She understands that you need credit cards at some point in time, but everybody disagrees on how much money you should save and how much, everybody's got a different process here. So, and everybody here has got a different personality. And we need to apply to you what works best for you. Super. Questions? Look at that. At that, it's 6:55. As my pastor would say, end in closing and go on for 20 more minutes, but I'm not going to do that. So any questions right now? Awesome. Very good. We'll see you next week.